We are very excited and grateful to have Dr. Ibrahim Jaffe with us today. Dr. Ibrahim Jaffe is a physician, Sufi master healer, and spiritual guide who has pioneered spiritual healing in the Sufi way, the integration of Western medicine and Sufi spiritual practices to heal disease and improve health and well-being. He has helped thousands of people over the past 20 years. He is the president of the Institute for Spiritual Healing, along with the University of Sufism. Today's teaching is an introduction to Dr. Jaffe's 2.5-day workshop, September 25th through 27th, 2020, which is being hosted by the Minnesota Sufi community and offered over Zoom. Details and registration can be found at suficentermn.org or Dr. Jaffe MD, that's DRJAFFEMD.com. You can also find details of this upcoming workshop below the description of this video. His teaching today is Experience Spiritual Healing and Sufism. Ibrahim, welcome, and thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure, Abdullah. Always happy to be on the Minneapolis gatherings, everybody. Minneapolis, believe it or not, is one of my favorite places. Part of that probably has to do with Abdullah being there, but it is a place I have come to many times and taught many times, and happy to come back again. So let's start a little bit. I thought we would just kind of take it easy today. I don't know about you, it's a Sunday, it's Labor Day, and a weekend, and I know that everybody wants to relax. So I thought we would kind of start with a little bit of ease as well. But, you know, in the Sufi way for the new people, we always start with the Fatiha. The Fatiha is the opening Sufi prayer. So I'm going to say it. If you know me, please join me silently. And everybody close your eyes. This is to connect us with God and connect our hearts into love. Let's begin. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. All right, I want to thank you all for joining me and taking an hour out of your weekend. It's like a really delightful group, what I feel into all of you, and kind of feeling your hearts and your souls. And yeah, I just want to really thank you. So, you know, first of all, as you know, these are Sufi teachings. And again, I'm going to be talking to some different groups as I talk. Some of you I know are brand new. Some of you have, you know, kind of been on the path for a bit, and there are certainly some people who have been here a long time. So I'm going to kind of cross through all three groups. But, you know, I'm here teaching to you from the Tampa, Florida area. It's actually a beautiful day out here. And, you know, I think that this area, of course, as you know, is struggling very hard with COVID. We've actually probably got the most COVID cases in the country are in Florida. So there's a lot of, you know, concern and fear going on here. In fact, I was, you know, interesting. I went up to one of the malls yesterday near Sarasota, and they had, it was incredible. They had a, they called it a, I guess, a Florida national COVID testing place. They had, they had like a bunch of police cars with lights on, you know, flashing. They had maybe, I don't know, 50 Army people there who were doing the testing in tents. They had cars coming in. It was almost like a scene, like out of an apocalypse. You know, it was like something you would have expected. You know, here, one side got, you know, you go a little bit further, people are on the beach and they're bathing and they're sailing, and then you get to this place and they've got military, you know, places checking everybody. It was really a fascinating, like, juxtaposition of the two aspects of humanity happening side by side. So, you know, it made me think a little bit about us. You know, who are we? What are we doing? You know, and if you really think about it, we're the light holders. We're the people who are trying to hold the truth and the light, in the presence of everything going on the earth at this time. And of course, as Sufis, we're trying not only to hold the light and the truth, but we're also trying to hold the love. So these pieces are very, 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 very needed because, first of all, people are in very deep fear. And secondly, there's a lot of confusion and a lot of, judgment going on out there. So it becomes really important that there has to be people from all faiths, not only from Sufi, but every faith, that we're holding the love and we're holding the light, we're holding the truth in a gentle and a kind way. And we're seeking that the truth is a reality. The truth becomes a reality and that we trust. We all have to trust what's being made here. When I say being made, I don't mean made by the humanity, but I mean made by God itself. In other words, whatever's happening here is happening through God's hands, through God's permission. So when you understand that, in the Sufism, we call this primary cause. When you understand primary cause, then you start to have a sense of safety that you don't understand when you don't have primary cause. So primary cause is what is God making. Secondary cause is what is everybody else making. Okay, so primary cause, we're actually in an elevation, we're actually being accelerated, we're being purified, and we're being lifted out of illusion. But as you may know, the way that the divine works is whenever divinity wants to make a shift, it creates an anti-shift. In other words, if God wants love, it brings in an anti-love. If God wants Christ, it brings in an anti-Christ. If God wants peace, it brings in an anti-peace, because this is a dual world. So everything happens through a state of duality. Okay, so in this world, when you understand that this is how it works, the key to peace is actually knowing primary cause. You have to be able to understand, okay, well, what is God really trying to do here? And when you understand that, you understand the polarity of this positive negative. And within that, there's a safety because you understand how it's working. Okay, so for us as Sufis, we're constantly seeking that state of primary cause. We're looking for it. We're looking to understand it. We're trying to figure out what's going on with it. And in doing that, it brings a very, very deep state of peace. Okay. All right. So in Sufism, again, I wanted to kind of talk about Sufism first. We'll talk about healing a little bit later. We are working to understand primary cause. Okay. And so let's actually, I meant to introduce myself for the new people first. So I just realized I didn't do that. So let me stop for a moment. We'll come back here. Let me just say that, I guess I should probably introduce myself. So for the new people, as you probably know, looking at my notes here, my name is Ibrahim Jaffe. I am a medical doctor, and I'm also a licensed in both California and elsewhere. And I'm here to actually try to integrate medicine, spiritual healing, and Sufism as my core teaching. Okay, and a lot of my teachings come from the training I've had in alternative medicine. I'm also a homeopath. I studied both classical homeopathy and what they call homeopathy according to Bowles, which is a different type of homeopathy. And then I've studied many forms of spiritual healing. I've sat with the Philippine psychic surgeons. I've been there. I have not opened bodies myself, but I've actually had my hands inside of bodies that have been opened by the healers. I've sat with and learned from Bill Gray, who was one of the preeminent etheric surgeons at the time, and he taught me how to do etheric surgery. And I've also studied with Apache, Sioux, Indian healers, among other things, many Indian tribes. I've also studied with shamans from Kahuna, and I've studied with shamans from Mexico as well. So I have a lot of experience in energetic healing. And I also spent about 10 years studying chakra healing from some of the Hindu healers in India and Buddhist healers. So with that, what I'm going to be teaching you today is a combination of understanding all these things and how they come together, and how the penultimate form of healing, I believe, is Sufi healing. So I'm not coming to it from a place of kind of arrogance, saying, you know, I think Sufi healing is great, and I think it's the best. I'm coming from somebody who has studied many systems over the last 40 years and been trained with some of the best people on the planet. And with that, I want to say that I still come back to Sufi spiritual healing as the highest form of healing. So we're going to be talking to you about why that is and how it can help you. It doesn't mean it's the fastest or the easiest, but what it does mean is it's the deepest and the most profound. And I'll explain to you why I'm saying that. Okay, so with that introduction, I'm going to go back to say that that when we're working with the world, there are many groups on this planet. We have Christians, we have Jews, we have Muslims, we have Buddhists, we have Hindus, and many, many, many other forms. And unfortunately, every group believes that it's the best. And every group believes that its teachings are the best. And so what ends up happening is that we end up in war, and we end up with people, you know, fighting each other for who or what is the best. Now, for me personally, I've tried to get out of that. I don't like being in that state of disunity. I don't like, I have met incredibly holy people in every religion, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, enlightened teachers from Buddhism, enlightened teachers from Hinduism, Gnostic Sufis, you know, from all over the world. And my experience is that every one of them is incredible, has a great deal to give to the world, is full of light and love, and that each of them carries something very special. So the first thing is I want to say is that I think we need to be careful with separation. Secondly, within that, having gone through many systems, what I have found is that the prophetic teachings, meaning the teachings that come from the prophets, for me personally have been the clearest, the purest, and the highest. And what I mean by that, by highest, is I mean that they are coming directly from God. And so that these are very God-related teachings. Now, the one thing I like about the Sufi teachings is that they're heart-based. They come from the heart. So they're not, it's not about raising the energy through the chakras and opening the third eye and having enlightenment. It's about your ability to live in your heart and to stay in your heart and to deepen your heart. And this is why personally I love Sufism. I love it because, I don't know, for me, I'm a lover. I'm a person who loves love. And if it come down to the end of the day, no matter what I do, I hold it up to the candle of love. So if I'm worshiping God and there's no love, I don't think the worship is very good. If I'm doing healing and there's no love, I don't think the healing is very good. For me, the love has to be there. I have to experience it at all times. If I don't experience that love, I don't like what I'm doing. And I've seen some incredible things, but without the love, for me, I don't think it's complete. It's missing something. So when I study with teachers over the years, and they might, you know, be able to be a etheric surgeon, open the body up, and with incredible energy work, and you watch the body open, but I don't experience love there, I'm suspicious. Because you can gain power, but without love, you'll misuse it. With love, you'll be very careful about what you do with anything. So for me, no matter who you are, what you have, if I don't experience the love in it, I think you haven't understood it completely. And this is why I like the prophetic teachings, because when you learn from, let's say, Prophet Muhammad, who is last of the prophetic line, or you learn from Moses, or you learn from Abraham, or any of these people, Jesus, you learn from people who have the deepest love in their hearts. And that's why, for me, I have chosen to stay in this tradition, even though I've studied many, and I believe that this tradition is complete, and I'll explain that in a moment, because it is, for me, a pinnacle of love, that it carries the deepest love that I can find, that I have found on the planet. I find it in this tradition. Okay, so what does it mean? There are many types of love. The highest love is the love that comes from God to the student. Or we say from God to the murid, the one who's walking to God, the traveler. That love, when it comes down in a very, very, very pure form. And it is the most holy love that I have experienced. And I've been in love many times. I've experienced many types of love. But the love, I've loved the Creator. That's a very powerful form of love we call ishq. But when the Creator loves me, which I call divine essential love, it has been the most beautiful form of love there is. Okay, so in these teachings, what we want to do is we want to teach you the nature of love itself. We want to teach you how to reach divine, how the divine will send that love into you, and how that love will open you to be the best person you can be. And ultimately, how it will lead you into the unity or the oneness with the divine itself. All right, so let me give you a little history about myself. I was brought up in Chicago. Just for fun, I used to be a wrestler. I actually used to wrestle back in the day. And believe it or not, when I was young, I went to the Junior Olympics and was wrestling as a Junior Olympic for Illinois. Unfortunately, in my state championship match, I did what they call a supplé, where I brought somebody over so hard that I cracked a bunch of my own ribs from my own move. Went into the Junior Olympics, and wasn't a good scene because of it. But anyways, the point of it is, the reason I'm bringing that up is I'm from Chicago. And what I have found is that what I learned in Chicago is what I would call one-pointedness. That if you're going to reach anything of value, you have to be one-pointed. So for me, of course, as I said, I reached the Junior Olympics, but then I said, you know what, I'm going to take this aspect of one-pointedness, and I'm going to focus on becoming a doctor, which I did. And then I focused on becoming a healer, which I did. And then at some point I said, I want to focus it on enlightenment. And I said, I'm going to find the highest teacher I can find in the world, and I'm going to put myself at his feet, surrender to him, and maybe he'll accept me. And that was a time actually that I met a man named Sidi. And I believe that Sidi was that man I was looking for. So I surrendered to him. But I want to tell you that Sidi was unusual, because in his way of being, he had something that was different than anything I'd seen before. In other words, having studied with Hindu masters and masters, tantric masters, people who are from the Eastern tradition, I was used to a certain form of enlightenment, which was enlightenment kind of traveling out, all over the place. And when I met Sidi, he had the same enlightenment, but there was something else. It was like a ring around him that was like a ring that contained the enlightenment. It was interesting. So the other teachers I were with, they were like eternally going out. And Sidi, I could feel the eternity, but they were held in this ring, and I had never experienced what that ring was. I didn't know what it was. And I went to him and I talked to him about it. I said, what are you carrying here? What is this? What is this? And he said to me, things I didn't understand at the time. But essentially what he said to me was that that his enlightenment was contained by divine law. And he said the other enlightenments were not contained by divine law. So again, I didn't know really what that meant at that time. But what I understood was that he had reached this state of eternal expression in himself. And then somehow this divine law limited his expression of that. In other words, from what he had with it was that it's like the law kept him safe so that he couldn't go outside of the law. Where the other people in their enlightenment had freedom, he was limiting that freedom and saying, look, I have the aspect of complete freedom inside of me, but I'm not going to go all the way into complete freedom. So I asked him about that, and what I understood was that divine law kept us safe. He was saying that in my being, I'm safe because this ring keeps me from making mistakes, that if I didn't have that ring there, I would go out eternally, but I wouldn't have limitations. And in that lack of limitations, I would cross divine law. And in crossing divine law, there would be consequences. So that was really an interesting phenomenon for me. And today, if you look at, many of the teachers out there who have reached enlightenment, they have run into issues with crossing divine law, and there's been kickback. So that was really an interesting phenomenon for me, of saying, how do you limit your enlightenment? What is the limitation of enlightenment, and how do we be eternally free and at the same time be limited by divine law? You see, and that became some of my search as Sufism, was I wanted to experience that and understand that. Now, the second thing with Sidi was I was on a search for enlightenment. I wanted to reach enlightenment because the teachers I studied with were enlightened. And my experience was incredible. I wanted to know how to experience that feeling of ecstasy and that feeling of wisdom and that knowledge and the illumination coming out of their beings. I was like, how do you reach that? How do you get to that? That's what I want. That's what triggered me. That's what I wanted. So I came again to Sidi and I said, Sidi, well, he said to me, what do you want, Dr. Jaffe? And I said, I'm sick right now. I want you to heal me, but after healing me, I want you to enlighten me. I want you to take me to enlightenment. And he started laughing. I thought, oh my God, what are you laughing at me for? And he said, what you think is enlightenment? He started like belly laughing. He said, enlightenment, what you think is enlightenment is the beginning of something so much bigger than what you know. And I can take you far, 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 far beyond what you think enlightenment is. And that really caught me. I thought, wow, this guy's telling me that I thought I knew what enlightenment was, and he's telling me that I'm in kindergarten of enlightenment, and that what he's going to do is he's going to teach me how to be a PhD of it. He's going to take me beyond anything. And that caught me. I said, okay, if he can really do that, I want to learn that. Okay. Well, today, many years later, let me explain to you what he's talking about. You see, in Sufi tradition, we have 7 stations, and each station is a station of light. The 4th station is the station of Hakika. Okay, Hakika is one of the most beautiful experiences that a human being can have. In the state of Hakika, the soul merges into the ocean of divinity. It doesn't disappear, but it merges with it. And in the merging with divinity, the soul experiences the purest truth and the purest love. And they experience enlightenment, which is the mind opening up into this extraordinary reality. And they experience the wisdom that comes from that truth. And this is called the 4th station. And in our system, Sufi system, we're here to take you from the 1st station to the 4th station. That's what we're trying to do. We're walking you from the 1st station into the 4th station. Okay. Now, that 4th station was what Sidi told, what I thought I was trying to reach. And that's what Sidi was laughing at. When Sidi heard me going, oh, I've got to reach this 4th station. It's the most amazing thing in the world. It's the highest thing that exists. That's what I want. He got such a kick out of me, because he was like, Dr. Jaffe, this 4th station is the beginning. It's the kindergarten of a whole nother reality. And that's what it's all about. So don't you dare stop at the 4th station. Keep going. Keep going. There's so much more waiting for you. So what was he talking about? Well, he was talking about the 5th, 6th, and 7th station. The 5th station is where we as Sufis in the Shadowliya tradition are trying to get you to reach. Okay, the 5th station is about how you walk through into the state of subsistence. In subsistence, you become this solid, in other words, your enlightenment, if you will, is grounded. Your hakika, your truth, is realized. So in our system, the fourth station leads to something much, much bigger than that, which is the station of baka, or the station of subsistence in God, or subsistence in Allah. So we're seeking to help you to reach the station of baka and the station of baka billah. Okay, now in traditional teachings, we could say that in fact, in traditional prophetic teachings, particularly in the Muhammadan way, the Islamic way, they talk about Islam, but then they talk about something called Iman. They say we want to reach Iman. Iman means faith or belief. And then they talk about this strange thing called Ihsan, which is called excellence, which is considered to be spiritual excellence. You see? And then they talk about something higher called Elikan. And Elikan is that state of really putting your heart completely in the presence of divinity in a solid way. So the Baka teachings are these teachings of Elikan, which is this very, very high light that's calling to all of us. It's asking all of us to come home. Coming home means coming home to Elikan. It means coming home to the reality of God. It means coming home to the oneness that is eternal, where our souls come from, that has always been here and will always be here, and we will always be here. And even after we leave these bodies, we will be in that state of Elikan, in that reality that exists forever. And that's the state. You know, the Christians talk about heaven, you know, and the Muslims talk about Jannah, paradise. But what we're talking about here is people who have realized these states in the body. You know, you talk about heaven on earth. Heaven on earth is the fourth station. And the station of paradise is to reach the station of unity or oneness while you're in the body. If you reach that, the story is that you get a direct pass. Of course, when you die, you go right to heaven. But at the same time, you actually experience heaven on earth at this time. So anyways, everybody, this is really what I'll be working on this coming weekend for you in Minneapolis. And of course, in most of the introductory teachings, I try to introduce these pieces to you, the pieces of the fourth station to the fifth station, the pieces of walking to those stations, how you get there. In the intro teachings, we go over those. What are the practices? What are the healing purification methods that you need to learn? And finally, we go over the teachings that you have to learn in order to build the house of God in your heart. Okay, so I call this building the house of God. And essentially, every time you learn one of these teachings, you literally build a structure inside your heart of light. That structure becomes deeper and holier and holier and holier and holier. And eventually, you have built what we call the house of God. The house of God means that the house of God can contain God's energy. So God, it says, you have built my house in your heart, and I can live through you. I can bring my light within you and help you to actually carry that deep inside yourself. It doesn't mean that, of course, that you become God, because nobody really becomes God. But what it means is that we carry the light that God allows us to have his house inside of him. We carry that light inside of us, the house of God. And this is the teachings. The Sufi teachings are about building this house of God inside of your heart. And we'll go through some of those tonight, because this is just a brief lecture. So we're just kind of talking about, you know, many, many things in a short time. But essentially, we want you to build the house of God inside of your heart. Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about healing. As you know, I'm a spiritual healer and a physician. But the healing is what I love the most. And probably 99% of my medical practice today is healing. But people call me from all over the world with all sorts of diseases, all sorts of problems. And what I do is I work to heal them in the Sufi way. And I'm going to explain that to you. And that's what essentially we'll be teaching you in the weekend workshop coming up. Okay, so here's how it works. When a person gets sick, or they have problems in their life. The deepest understanding, and this is hard for people because they go into guilt and shame, and you don't have to go into guilt and shame, but the deepest teachings are that whatever is from you is for you, and whatever is for you is from you. Which means that if something's not working in your life, it's because it's not working inside of you. Okay? And so if you're having trouble, meaning your life isn't working, then it's something inside of you that's causing your life not to work. Okay? So the prophetic teachings were that if you want to change your reality, you have to change yourself. That God never changes somebody's reality until they change themselves. Okay, but the problem is that most people don't know their own inner reality and don't know how to change their inner reality. So what they end up doing is avoiding it, or not knowing it, or actually ending up, in a way, making problems for themselves. Okay, so the real teaching of healing at the end of the day is very simple. It comes down to one thing, and this is amazing key that I want to give you. That healing at the deepest level is about choice. Okay, let me repeat this. Healing at the deepest level is about the choice that you've made. Okay, so again, I'm going to explain this for you. That whenever you go inside yourself and you get into your heart and into your soul and into your spirit, at every time that something goes wrong inside, it comes from a choice that we made that was the wrong choice. Okay, so what's the wrong choice and what's the right choice? The wrong choice is any choice that God doesn't like, and the right choice is any choice that God accepts. Okay, so what I want to try to say to you is that if you look really deep inside yourself, if you're suffering, you made a choice that led to that suffering. And if you're not suffering, it's because you took a different choice that didn't create that suffering. And we know that because we see twins all the time. They have exactly the same DNA. Everything is the same, yet one of them gets sick and one doesn't. Why? Because there was a choice made by the one that got sick that was different than the one that didn't. So if you're going to heal yourself in the Sufi way, then you have to make the choices that basically bring love, and the choices that bring oneness, and that your choices are always moving towards love, oneness, and truth. And if you do that, you will be healthy. If you make choices that are not of that level, and I understand we're all weak and we all make mistakes and there are places we all have to learn, so we make choices that aren't always the best, but those choices will lead to pain and suffering inside yourself. Okay? All right. So that's the first major teaching I wanted to give you. In this system, we're going to teach you at the end of the day how to find the choices that your soul has made. Not talking about the choices of your mind, not the choices of your conscious self, not the choices of your heart, the choices of your essence, the choices that are so deeply hidden inside of you that you don't even know that you made them. But those choices at the deepest level are the choices that are creating health and wellness or illness and suffering inside of you. I promise you that. But you have to understand those choices. The second thing, and I know this is difficult to understand, but God has will. And the will of God is pure and perfect. And what is not from God is impure and imperfect. Okay, so we have basically a polarity: the perfection of divine will and the imperfection of the human self. When we change the human will to align with divine will, we stay healthy. When we fall into the human will and we leave divine will, we become unhealthy. So to learn to be healthy, what we really need to do is we need to learn to understand, what is God asking of us each moment? What is God wanting from us? How can we face these deeper places inside of ourselves and line them up with the divine asking? How do we receive help? How do we get help from God to do that? How do we let go of those places in ourself that are making choices that are leading to things that aren't right? I'll give you an example of this. I was on a call with some of my students, one of my classes the other day, and we were talking about guidance. So we were doing a guidance process where we were working with finding divine will. And I thought to myself, I haven't actually checked that level of deep guidance for a little bit. Let's go in here and see if there's any news, So I went in, checked. Sure enough, all of a sudden, as I'm sitting there going into the place of deep guidance, the image of the keys, Key Largo, Key West, open up for me. And I realize I'm looking in the inner world of imagination. I'm starting to see in my inner world the keys. So I'm wondering why is God bringing images of the keys to me? Because we were going to the divine, we were calling for divine guidance, using istikara, using these sacred ways of bringing divine guidance into us, calling forth to the divinity. So I'm looking at the keys, and all of a sudden, I noticed that my vision is funneling into Key Largo. And I'm thinking, does God want me to go to Key Largo? And as I go into Key Largo, the light turns black. Everything becomes black and heavy and thick. And I thought, oh my God, what is going on in Key Largo that there's so much blackness down here? So then I sat further in guidance, and I said, Allah, what is it that you want from me? What, you want me to go to Key Largo? You want me to try to heal Key Largo? What are you asking from me? And as I asked those questions, it became very clear that Allah was asking me to go into the keys and to move into that area. And then he was asking me to clean that blackness. So I was like, oh, how am I going to do this? I have a house, I'm here up in the Tampa area. How am I going to get down there? But I was clear that was the guidance. And I was clear that it was beyond my own desire, because I had no desire to leave Tampa to go to the Keys. But would you believe, literally, I hang up the phone, about an hour later, my neighbor knocks on my door, walks over to my house, and says to me, you know what, we actually would like to buy your house. We had the feeling you might be wanting to move. Would you like to sell your house to us? So literally within probably 1 or 2 hours of getting that type of guidance, I already had an offer to move out of this area. So this is what I'm saying to you, as you learn to listen to divine guidance. When you follow divine guidance, your life becomes very, very easy. When you follow yourself, your life becomes more difficult. And some of you, if you follow a third thing we call shaitan are the devils that exist in the astral worlds, the shadow worlds. And they are also trying to disturb us, and they talk to us. And when you follow shaitan, everything goes wrong or goes bad. So who are you following? Who are you following? See, yesterday I happened to walk into a shop, and the guy was there, and he was, tattooed with skulls and crossbones and all sorts of things. And we got into a conversation. It was very clear to me he was following shaitan. And we got into an argument. I'll say that he started getting very mad at me, I think probably because of the light. But anyways, as we started to get mad, I started sitting with him, just with God's light, with Allah's light. Didn't say a word. I just sat with him. And at first he got really, really angry at me. And then all of a sudden he just said, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm so lost. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to get out of here. I need to get out of here. And he's like shaking his arms and trying to get all these things off of him. And he just wants, he's just a child who went down a wrong path. He was a child that took a wrong turn. And he's trying to find himself back. We have to be the people, everyone, that know how to help people come back. We have to find the truth. We have to know what the truth is. We have to know what God is asking for us. This is an amazing adventure. It's an amazing adventure. You will be challenged, and yet it's also incredibly enriching. And when you're in that alignment with God, your neighbor walks over to you and says, can I buy your house? Because it means that God wants you to go. God's right there. He said, you're following my guidance, I'm helping you. When you follow yourself, you know, I would have ended up who knows where, you know, someplace else, because I wasn't following God's will for me. I was following my own will and following what I want, not what God wants. You see? So to learn this, you have to be able to bow your heart to the divine. You have to learn to bow your heart to the divine. And that means that you're going to have to clear those places in yourself where you're still holding on to who you think you are. You have to clear those places where you think this is who we are. You're a man or you're a woman. You have to let that go. You're not a man or a woman. You're beyond both. That you're from Minneapolis or Texas or Louisiana or wherever you think you're from. These are cultural things. This is not who you are. Who you are is that you are a spark of divinity, carrying divine will, carrying divine light, carrying divine love, carrying the names of God. Who you are is lofty ethics, morality, and understanding. Who you are is wisdom, and the wisdom of the divine moving through you. That's who you are. You're not the limited selves. Everyone has to go beyond the attachments to the smallness of our own beings so that we can move into the grandeur of divinity and who we really are, to go beyond ourselves. This is the highest, and this is the most beautiful thing we can do. So here, these Sufi teachings are here to help you to disappear. We say to make fana, to fana from your own reality into a much greater, higher, more beautiful, deeper, profound reality. But it comes when we surrender our attachments to the past and who we are. And instead we stay in the moment, but in that moment we open to divinity. And in that moment, the divine overcomes us and takes charge of us. And that is the divine expression. That is the teaching. And by the way, this is what all the prophets were teaching, from Prophet Muhammad all the way through Noah, through Abraham to Adam, all the way to the very beginning of time. These teachings have been, this is the teachings that they were teaching, how to become one with the divine love, how to annihilate from ourselves, and how to enter into a state of consciousness that is extraordinary and beyond anything that the human being knows. Okay, so everybody, this will be some of the Sufi teachings we'll be working on. We'll be starting with learning some of them next weekend. Those of you who are joining me, we'll be learning about the soul. We'll be learning about the heart. But most importantly, we'll be learning about the choices that cause us to stay attached to those realities and how we can change those realities to become one with the Most High. So I hope that you'll join me for those teachings. I'm going to go over them briefly, and then I'll open up to some Q&A for any of you that would like to listen or ask questions. But let me just go over, just going to scroll down here. What did I do with that? Yeah. Okay. So in the weekend coming up, there's 8 segments. These are basically what I'll be teaching you if you'd like to learn. First, we're going to be talking about alignment. with God or with Allah. I call it the A, coming into alignment and learning how to prostrate our hearts into the presence of divine love. Okay, the second section, we're going to be learning about understanding and anchoring and strengthening the stations of the nafs and the nature of surrendering to God versus getting caught by the voices of the self. So we're going to be looking at how your self catches you and keeps you from that divine alignment. In our third section, we're going to be taking a little bit further, and we're going to be walking up into the heart, and we're going to be helping you with being in the heart, walking through the heart stations, and being able to understand how the heart folds into the soul. Okay. Then we're going to be going further. The last session, we'll be doing your own Q&A about yourselves, whatever you're going through. Just be working with the group, questions and answers, whatever you need. We might be doing some healing. And then we'll go into day two. Day two, again, we'll be looking at the patterns that create illness and the nature of understanding the patterns. We'll then be looking at the walking and the teachings, again, of the second and third stations of the heart and the soul. We'll be looking at some of those teachings for the different people that are there. What are the stations of the heart? You know, how do you walk through them? How does one enter into the soul? What is the nature of the soul? What are the attributes of the soul? The third session will be doing experiential transformation of the soul and finding your divine teaching. Okay, and finally, we'll be doing questions and answers at the end of the course. And again, actually, you can check the exact dates. I don't think it's next weekend. I think it's a couple weekends away, but you can check on those. So please take a look at that, and you may find it helpful and interesting. And I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to talk about. Let me just see if I missed anything here. We talked about questions and answers. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, all right, everyone, we've got about 10 minutes left here. So I'd like to just open up the floor to anybody if you want. Pat, how do we get this to work? You want them to raise their hand?
Yeah, we have quite a few people online, so if you could raise your hand, please. I don't have any questions in the chat right now, so if there's anybody that'd like to ask a question, go ahead. And okay, I'm phone number that ends in 0904. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, hit *6 and ask your question, please.
Me. This is Latifa in San Diego, and I just wanted to say thank you for your explanation, Ibrahim, and I send you my love.
You're welcome, Latifa. And I just want to say to you that I know, I can feel you're having a bit of a hard time. Yet, I want you to know that way, way deep inside of you, I can feel this new light starting to dawn on you, which is one of the new attributes. Yes. And I know you're breaking through. So I want to congratulate you for that.
Thank you. Blessings to you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Abdullah Amin, you're next up. I'm going to ask you to unmute. And a question came up about the workshop and whether it was just for Minnesota. So this workshop is available to anybody in the world. So anybody from any place in the world can join this workshop, September 25th through 27th. Having said that, Abdullah Amin, why don't you go ahead, please?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Amin, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Earlier this week, I felt like I experienced the heart more than I've ever experienced it before. It was just a lot of clarity. But I know that somewhere in myself, I got thrown off. I followed myself. I followed self-will and got thrown off. So I was just wondering for any advice on how I could get back there and clean that and what Allah is asking from me.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, you remember we talked about the stations. We talked about the fourth station out of 7. But, you know, in the first and the second station's a very holy station where one falls into the heart. And that's what happened. You actually crossed into the second station, had the experience of the love of being in the heart, but then something came into your mind and it caught you and it pulled you out, right? So
Yeah.
what you have to do is now you have to make Tauba. This is your time for Tauba. Tauba, everybody is asking God for forgiveness, and Tauba means to return. So he returned to what? He has to return back to his heart. But the reason he left the heart is because he listened to something that pulled him out. So he has to make Tauba to ask God for forgiveness. We say, Astaghfirullah al-Azim. I ask God for forgiveness. And you ask him for forgiveness for falling out of your heart, going back to the self and listening to those voices inside of you. And he will accept it. God will accept it. But you may have to ask him, my guess is 2,000 or 3,000 times before he really accepts it, because he wants to clean your listening. He has to clean the place that you listen to things that make you fall out. Okay, so don't feel bad about it. Just go ahead and do the 2,000 to 3,000 times, okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Layla Walzer, you're next up.
Hey, Assalamu alaikum, Ibrahim. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Layla.
I just wanted to say, I think that teaching that everything that comes to you is from you and vice versa is so empowering. You know, I know so many good-hearted people who are in a lot of pain and despair around the political leadership we have right now and the way things are going in this country. And I think it feels empowering to know that there is some kind of, I would say, mirroring going on to something inside each one of us. It's like in the Quran, it says that Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change what is inside themselves. And it's like that, to me, that's empowering information rather than feeling like, well, gosh, how could we have this happen or that happen or this leader or that leader? It's like, okay, this is a teaching. This is something, maybe I'm not quite like that or not 100% like that, but enough for me to look inside and see what I need to change in myself. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point, Layla. And this is, you know, for people who are kind of newer to the Sufi path, there's 2 things that will help you navigate these waters. One of them is primary cause, and the second one is what Layla just spoke about, which is knowing everything, you know, that is from you is for you. And so, you know, what that means is that whatever's happening out here in the world is an outpicturing of our collective unconscious. You know, in other words, we're all human beings. We have a collective unconscious for our whole group. Every species does. And the ants have their collective unconscious. The bees have their collective unconscious. The wolves have their collective unconscious. And human beings, we have our collective unconscious. When we are not taking care of ourselves as a collective, the collective outpictures itself. And unfortunately, the outpicturing is the strongest part of the collective. So if 51% of the collective says, you know, I want this president or I want that president, that collective appears. Now you might say, well, that's not what the numbers show, but in a very deep way, God gives to us pretty much what we as a collective outpicture. So whatever that means, you know, the bottom line is that whatever is happening in this world, COVID, the elections, racism, all the things that are hitting the fan at this time, they are from us. It means that in our collective unconscious, all this stuff is going on. So at the end of the day, what's really being asked is for us to know what's in our collective and to purify it, to make it clean. And that's where we as Sufis, people on this path, it's our job to be able to get in there and understand the collective unconscious, to know that we're hooked into it and that we have to be the ones to make the shift. If we don't shift the collective, it's going to continue to come back at us. You see, it continues to come back at us again and again and again, because it is for us to help us to purify the collective. So what's the primary cause? The primary cause, God wants us to be better people. God wants the human race to reach extraordinary levels of beauty and goodness. God wants us to reach the unity. God wants us to be full of love. God does not want us in separation. God does not want us hating each other. God does not want us judging each other. God does not want these things to go on in our world. And there are many people that are hooked into that. So this is why God brings it. And we have to be strong. We have to know that primary cause is for the best. God is asking us to change so that we can go further as a species.
Yeah, it's a love letter from God, and we are not hapless victims. We're actually being shown something that will make us ultimately much happier and freer as we walk in clean and heal. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thank you, Leila. Thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you, Layla. Nabila, you're next up. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Assalamu alaikum, Ibrahim.
Alaikum salam, Nabila.
Yeah, my guidance is to speak the truth all the time. So how can I speak the truth?
Okay. That's a great question.
Because I scared to speak the truth.
Yeah, you speak the truth, but you get yourself in trouble too. You know, the art of speaking the truth is learning to speak the truth in an artful way. Okay, so the truth can be very, very powerful, but the truth can also be like a sword, and it can cut people and can cut you. It's like a two-edged sword. It cuts them and then it comes back and it cuts you. So learning to speak the truth means, first of all, that you have to find the truth inside yourself. What is the truth? Divine will, divine knowledge, divine understanding. That's what truth is. You have to find that inside yourself. You can't speak it if you don't know what it is. Okay. Secondly, once you know it, you've got to follow this law. It's called the law of love, which is whatever you speak as truth needs to bring love. Not hatred, not killing, not separation. It needs to bring love. So the art of the truth is the art of speaking the truth that brings love. So for you, Nabila, I would say to you, be clear you're speaking the truth. Then you go inside yourself and you say, how can I deliver this in such a way that the outcomes will be more love on the planet, less separation, less distancing, less pain, and then speak the truth in a loving way, and you got it.
Yeah, thank you, Ibrahim.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Nabila. Shiraz, you're next up. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for letting me to ask my question from my leader. This is my first time that I'm joining this community, but from the heart, always I was connected, even when I was in Germany. I was by Sufism in all kind of form, and here as well. My biggest question is, as I show you, this is my father. He passed away about 3.5 years, almost 4 years ago. And only thing that I remember from him is just pure love. And I participate what he gave it to me, to other people. For example, I give unconditional love to anybody, even to animals. That I learned from my dad, and everybody saw me. I'm not one to advertise myself. I want to share with you how I feel in my heart. And I'm very excited to share that I see some unnatural evidence or something in my life that I cannot explain with the normal law or physics. Something is above this world. For example, sometimes I have some amazing connection to my dad, and sometimes they told me I shouldn't talk about it. Sometimes from childhood, always I ask my God, I want to see another world. And because I'm Persian, in some poet like a Hafiz or Rumi, always they talk about it. When you see the other word, or you shouldn't talk about it. I'm not telling that I saw everything, but I'm telling that I have some connection. And I'm so excited because sometimes I feel maybe I'm getting crazy, or I'm not okay, but I keep it secret for myself. I just share one of my sheikh that I'm really trusted. But you are the leader of Sufism, or you're talking about love. Is that possible, that love make it something impossible to possible? And what I feeling, what I practicing, what I learned from my dad, can you a little bit explain for me that? I'm so excited. I'm so happy, actually, Can you please tell me, can we have really real connection to soul of the people that they are not anymore here?
Shiraz, these are really great questions. They're beautiful questions.
Thank you.
Your father is a very holy man. He has the real love in his heart, and he really loved God, and he loved you, and he really cared for you with the deepest politeness, and out of that, he, in a way, he transferred his essence, his ethics, his morality, his truth, that transferred into your heart. So you were given like a head start, because you had like this upbringing, rather than most people, they have upbringing which breaks them and causes them to fall down, and they have to deal with all that. You did not have much of that. So the good news is that you really started in a really good way. And then, of course, you've been keeping that love very sacred inside of you and really practicing it. And I can feel that your heart has deep love in it. And that means that you are doing good for the world. And then you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he feels that someone is really serving his face and really helping him, helping his world, then Allah gives gifts to people. Now, nobody can see Allah with their eyes. Nobody can see these things, the unseen, with their eyes. But you see, in the imaginal world, in the imagination, Allah speaks to people through symbols and through images and through certain kinds of knowings and things. And what's happening for you is you're opening those areas now. Those are parts of the brain that open when God gives the order to open them. They open when it's time. And you're starting to open those places. So alhamdulillah, it's great that you're doing it, and people won't understand it because most people don't open them. But once, if it opens for you, then be thankful because Allah gave it. There have been many people, that have had that part of their mind opened. Prophet Muhammad, for example, opened that part. All the great masters, all the avatars, all these people open those parts of their minds, and then also, people like Umar and Abu Bakr and people like that, they also opened these places and began to be able to see and know things like this. So it's not something that can't be done. It can be done. And the way you do it is through your walking. You have to walk, you have to face yourself, you have to face the ego inside yourself. You have to clean that. When you clean, see, Allah will not give you those experiences until your heart's clean. When your heart's clean, then he starts to open those experiences up inside of you. So all I can say is alhamdulillah, but it's something you should not be talking about. And for all the people on the call, this is something that you can all reach to. It's not something that's not reachable. It's something that's very reachable, but it's something that it happens through your practices and through your purification of your heart and through your sincere desire to serve God in this world. If you follow those things, everybody, these things may open for you, inshallah.
Thank you. Shiraz. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Shiraz. We have one final question from Rivka and Benjamin. Go ahead and unmute yourselves. And Rivka, if you're there, ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum. Hi, Ibrahim. This is Rivka.
It's not Rivka. looking for you on my thing, but I can't find you. But okay, go ahead.
I'm on the phone, so
Okay,
maybe you can't see me that way.
that's what it is.
I have a question about guidance. So I've been through a couple of experiences recently where I felt I was getting really clear guidance to take a couple of different jobs, and both of them seemed to end pretty promptly. One of them, the last one, was in hospice, and I had a huge downpouring of light, and it just felt like Allah was helping me to integrate my spirit through working in my, my body and working with caring for the bodies of those who are dying. And that I've been working towards figuring out how to be in hospice care. So in the meantime, I felt like it was opening for me to go back to school to actually learn the role that I feel I'm being called to for end of life care. But in the process now, my company is saying they can't accommodate my school schedule. So, so I get a little bit confused by that, I guess, when there's so much light opening for something. And then I wonder, well, did I make some kind of wrong choices during this month and a half that caused a rift in the, relationships with the people? Is it something like that? Or is it really truly like Allah was opening my heart to what he truly wants for me, to go back to school and kind of, deepen and return to hospice? It's just kind of confusing.
I think, again, the first problem is the confusion. Like you're not clear in your guidance. And so what's happening is you get guidance and then you get other guidance. And frankly, I feel that you're mixing some very good guidance with some things that may not be the correct guidance. And the combination is kind of putting you all over the place. So what I would like you to do is to have really clear guidance before you act. Your guidance needs to be clear. So the best way, again, I'm asking, how to make this happen for you. And, when you pray your salat, you pray your prayer, there's a state in the prayer where you go into something called sajda. Sajda means you're bowing all the way down, putting your head on the ground. This is the holiest place in prayer. When you put your head all the way on the ground, it's the place of Gnostic inspiration and tajalli. Okay, so what I want you to do is when you pray, I want you to put your head, and this is for everybody as well, when you want to ask God for something, go into prostration, go into sajda. If you are praying the salat, then pray your salat. When you get into sajda, put your head on the ground, and then you make tawbah first. You make tawbah, meaning you ask God for forgiveness, astaghfirullah al-azim, until you feel very, very, very deep peace. That your inner world is peaceful. There's no chaos. There's no disturbance. There's only pure peace. That may take 1 minute. It might take half an hour. Once you hit the place of peace, that's when you ask for guidance, and you stay in the sajda, you stay prostrated, and now you say, oh my Lord, I'm in sajda, I bowed to you, I have found peace with you, now would you show me the true guidance? Okay, and when that guidance comes through and it's peace, there's not any kind of wavering or quivering or anything like that, it's peaceful, then you have real guidance. If you get quivering or you get wavering or you get doubt, that means you've gone into part of your mind that's fighting with it. You have to make tawbah again until you have peace. So it's a process. In the beginning, it may take half an hour, but then it'll take 20 minutes and then 10 minutes. And eventually you put your head down and your guidance will just be clear. Right? So I want you to do that practice and see what happens, okay?
Okay. Thank you, Rohit. Assalamu alaikum.
So that is our final question for today. Just a reminder that Ibrahim will be offering a weekend workshop on September 25th through 27th of this month. So it is Friday evening, Saturday and Sunday. It'll be offered via Zoom, so it's open to anybody anywhere in the world. If you would like further information or to register, the links are in the chat, or if you can't use those, simply Google Sufi Center, Minnesota, and the links are right on the front page of our website. And we would love for as many of you that want to come. If this is your first introduction to either Sufism or spiritual healing, you will be welcome in this workshop. And if you have been an experienced walker on the way, you will also be welcome in this workshop. So we hope that many of you are able to join us. We will record the entire workshop for people that register. Finally, I want to remind people that when we end today, the Zoom link will remain open. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we will be doing a Sufi healing circle or dhikr. And we can talk about that for those that are maybe not as familiar with that. So Ibrahim, thank you for being with us today. It's been wonderful to have you. We are very much looking forward to be with you for a more extended period of time in a couple weeks, and all the blessings that will bring to us.
Thank you, Abdul. Thanks for inviting me, and thank you, everyone. And yeah, just remember, if you walk and you learn these teachings, everything becomes right. And there's so much protection and safety. It's a different way of living. And when you don't have Allah, you don't have God, you don't have the practices, you don't have the teachings, your life is much more difficult, and many things can go wrong. So please, the new people, please join me. And for the older people, again, we're going to be working on walking. Particularly, we're going to be looking at walking of the heart and maybe into the soul, depending on the class. And please join me and the rest of the group if it's in your heart. So I'll say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace and blessings be on everybody's heart.